Welcome to the Practice Podcast, a show created by lawyers to help lawyers in life and business without all the complicated lawyer language. Let's welcome Bast Amron founders and your hosts, Jeff Bast and Bret Amron.
What's up?
Yo, I hear we're introducing panels from our 8th annual Business Advantage Forum.
This is true.
Which occurred.
Is this a question?
I was told it occurred on Earth Day-ish on April 22nd, 2026.
And you missed it.
I did. I had to actually work.
People are still complaining to me about that. They came to the event expecting
they were happy.
to see you.
They were happy. I was in court, so
did you win?
Actually did.
Well,
so that's good.
Need to ask?
So I'm going to introduce the first panel, even though I wasn't there, but I heard on good authority that you, Jeff, were the moderator and did a phenomenal job.
I can confirm that I was the moderator.
I can confirm on high authority because it's all over the blogosphere, it's all over TikTok and Instagram, it's everywhere, that you just killed it.
Link Eden,
and you killed it. So the topic was sustainability as strategy, legal responsibility, and business advantage. I mean, who knows more about that than you? No one. So the panel explored how sustainability and social accountability are becoming essential components of modern business strategy. I mean, a truer statement couldn't have been made. Leaders will discuss how regulatory shifts, stakeholder expectations, and environmental responsibility are shaping long-term success. Attendees learned practical approaches to integrating sustainable practices, strengthening community partnerships, and aligning corporate purpose with measurable business advantage. I hope those listening enjoy as much as the live audience did hearing Jeff moderate this amazing panel.
Well, with that intro, I don't know if they will, because that intro was just spectacular. Enjoy. All right, our first panel is called Sustainability as Strategy, Legal Responsibility and Business Advantage. This panel will explore how sustainability and social accountability are becoming essential components of modern business strategy. The leaders will discuss how regulatory shifts, stakeholder expectations, and environmental responsibility are shaping long-term success. Attendees, that's you all, will learn practical approaches to integrating sustainable practices, strengthening community partnerships, and aligning corporate purpose with measurable business advantage. And I'm really excited about our panel today. From my far left, we have Evan Nierman, who's the founder and CEO of Red Banyan. Evan is a crisis PR expert, 2-time best-selling author, and the founder and CEO of Red Banyan, which is an award-winning strategic communications firm. He has 25 years in crisis and reputation management. He's led top executives, public figures, global brands, and political leaders through complex, high-stakes challenges, and his insights are regularly sought by major media outlets covering topics involving reputational risk, public scrutiny, and crisis response. You can see him on CNN or wherever you turn on the TV these days. Welcome, Evan.
Thank you.
We have, to Evan's right, we have Patrice Gillespie-Smith, who is the president and COO of the Underline Miami. She leads the vision and execution of one of Miami's most transformative infrastructure projects. We're all seeing it. It's kind of amazing watching it develop, happen before our eyes. But through her leadership, the Underline is redefining how communities connect by creating a vibrant, walkable, and resilient urban space beneath Miami's metro rail. She is an experienced urban planner. She's worked across the country advancing initiatives focused on safety, mobility, and community-driven design. Before joining Friends of the Underline, she served as the Senior Manager of Planning, Transportation, and Resilience for the Miami Downtown Development Authority. Welcome, Patrice. And to my immediate left, Felipe Jaramillo, who is the head of Commercial Legal Americas GTM at Stripe. Felipe is an experienced legal professional, currently serving as the head of Legal Americas at Stripe. In his role, he leads a team of commercial legal attorneys focused on negotiating strategic deals and supporting Stripe's growth with innovative legal guidance. He's a proponent of the idea that in-house legal teams act as partners to the business, collaborating closely with the sales team to facilitate growth through strong relationships and effective negotiation. He's also an adjunct professor at the University of Miami School of Law. Welcome. Amazing speakers. I'm really excited about this. All right, so the general theme of this is this idea of sustainability. So what does that mean? Is it just using recycled paper in your office? What does sustainability mean? Patrice, you want to kick us off?
Well, the Underline, its very premise is sustainability, but just as a concept, I really think it's thinking beyond yourself and beyond the moment. Right now, with a lot of volatility happening, a lot of people are saying, you know what, I'm just going to hunker down and make sure that my family's taken care of. But you really have to think beyond that and think, what is this world going to look like next year, 10 years, 100 years from now? And I think that defines sustainability for the Underline. We're problem solving for a lot of issues that Miami's been dealing with for a long time. So right now, connections to transit, safety, we're one of the least safe places to walk and bike in the nation. Well, the Underline's trying to solve that. So sustainability is looking at things in a more global perspective for us.
I like it. Anyone else want to add anything?
Sure.
Felipe?
Speaking a little bit more of the commercial or business side, at Stripe, we kind of see sustainability from two different fronts. One, like our immediate efforts with Stripe Climate that basically enables merchants to contribute funds to do carbon offset, which I think is a growing theme. It's it's tied to the joint venture called Frontier that a lot of the tech companies are supporting. And then simultaneously, both within like our solution and our tech platform, what we enable of sustainable growth is focusing on financial services, right? And the ability to provide everybody across the economy the opportunity to leverage their finance as much as possible. And that goes from merchants to consumers. And we see our growth as the growth of the GDP means Stripe growth as well. And so the more that we focus on enabling and solving the friction that currently exists in our financial system, the more that we can help the economy and all of us benefit.
Cool. All right. So it's more than just using recycled paper. So thank you both. My theory was right for once I got one. All right. So, and what does this mean, Evan? What does this mean from a public relations perspective?
Slightly different take. Yeah. Yes, I think there's absolutely the green aspect. We're here on Earth Day. We're talking about conservationism, protecting the earth. When I hear the term sustainability, I think about it more through the context of we're in a rapidly changing business world. The whole world around us is changing before our eyes. AI is one piece of that. Obviously, lots of conflict, military and otherwise, all around the globe. And I think organizations have to think about sustainability also in terms of how are they going to sustain their business in the face of all these challenges? How do you build an organizational culture and an organization that can constantly both hold true to what you believe while constantly pivoting in order to navigate this ever-changing world? And so I think it's a harder time to be in business and operation. When I say in business, I don't just mean corporate. I mean also nonprofit organizations, mission-driven organizations, et cetera. But I think these are challenging times. And I think organizations have to be looking 2 and 3 steps ahead, because in today's world, it feels like we're constantly playing catch up with the technological leaps and bounds that are happening. So sustainability, as I see it, is broader, and it has to do with how do you sustain a culture, how do you sustain a business, how do you build an organization, not just that's going to survive the next year or 2 or 3, but 10 and into the next generation.
Yeah, I like that. And one thing you also said, bringing it back to the conversation we had before today, you said, step 1, do good. Step 2, talk about it. From the PR standpoint, you want to expand on that at all? Or
No, I'm happy to. Thank you. Yeah, I think where a lot of organizations stop is they do the right thing, but then they don't necessarily think to talk about it. And it could be that there's just a cultural aversion, or you run the risk of people accusing you of being performative. Oh, why are you doing these things? Because you want good PR, because you want people to think about you in a certain light. But I would argue doing the good thing is really step 1. Being willing to tell the world about it is step 2. And I think that's true, especially for attorneys. You do a great job for your client. That's your job. You're supposed to do that. But if you don't explain the value and you don't explain what you've done to actually advance their interests, you've only done part of the job. And I think for organizations, doing the right thing is important. But if you don't talk about it and you're not willing to post about it on LinkedIn, update your blog, show up at events and talk about it, well, then people aren't hearing about it. And there's a lot of other noise. So I would argue to those of you who feel like I want to do the right thing, I want to do good works, our firm is doing the right thing, that's step 1. Next is you have to be willing to talk about it.
Yeah, I think lawyers actually suffer from this even, sort of internally, like in communicating about the wins to our clients. Like sometimes an order granting our motion comes in And we forward it to the client. Hey, declare victory. Hey, we filed this motion. It was vigorously opposed. The judge granted it. We won. So you're talking on a more macro basis, but I think a lot of us, maybe it's a combination of humility or whatever, but aren't willing to declare victory when they should. We do well. We should not be shy about it, talking about it. Okay. Anyone else want to add anything? All right. Feel free to.
Well, I just think clients, customers, employees, they're all looking for that authenticity. So yes, it's public relations, but they want to know you walk the walk. And that's where the Underline. We've really been able to work with corporations, with organizations who may be up 10 stories in the air in an air-conditioned environment, really don't have access to nature or to mobility or to an opportunity to interact with nonprofits. And, so we're thrilled to be the platform where corporations can come out. Just today we had Amazon and JP Morgan out planting native plants for a microforest that we're putting together right by I-95. And, those employees are really happy. I'm sure they were happy also because they didn't have to show up to work today, but they also seem genuinely into the fact that they could be touching dirt, really being a part of something bigger than themselves.
I love that. I want to touch dirt.
Come on out.
How do we, can we just show up or is it an organized thing?
Well, the first Saturday of every month.
First Saturday of every month.
Every month, anybody can show up. And then if you're a firm or anybody wants to come out, then we do have, special days that we can arrange for any organization.
Okay. All right. Cool. I'm excited about that. First Saturday of every month. Jolly, do we have plans on that? Okay. All right. So, circling back to sustainability, is it a responsibility or is it a business advantage? What do we think?
I clearly see it as a business advantage. And I think the reputation that each company holds out in the market is ever so more present today. You can Google search away not only a company, but go really in depth into its latest activities. We have many founders and such that are very active on social media, some for their benefit, others not so much. But it is out there in the public and it's very tangible and the reputation that you build as a brand carries a ton of weight. And now I would say is more fragile. Within Stripe, we always have these kind of runarounds sometimes where somebody's tweet can actually trigger a whole bunch of work internally where somebody's having a difficulty with our platform, right? And they're complaining, saying, I have this issue, I can't process payment, my business is stuck. And that creates a sort of immediate workforce internally within Stripe to make sure that we're upholding the reputation and kind of the service that we provide. And it's very tangible, it's immediate, it is in your face. And we also expect the interactions to be out there in the public so that people hold us to our word whenever we're offering a service. I think it's the reputation and the goodwill that you put out there that actually enables us to continue offering our services. And we see it via negotiations, which are kind of more tangible to my work, is when we're across the board from a user that's kind of questioning why we're being so forceful in a negotiation or why we are not giving up. A lot of it ultimately lies in the trust that we built with them. And that trust is something that we built during the negotiation, but other part of it is the trust that they come into it with about knowing about Stripe or any other company. And same the other way around. We know of our users and we know which ones are very trustworthy and have a good reputation and have good practices that hopefully help our partnership grow, right? And so I do think it's an investment. It's very difficult to put a number on it, but it does carry a huge impact and we see it on a daily basis.
Is it an advantage?
Felipe kept using the word reputation, which I think he hit the nail on the head. Because when you think about it, what is it that every person in this room and every organization possesses, which is arguably the most valuable thing that you have? It can take you a lifetime to build it and a moment to lose it. So reputation is fundamental in terms of the modern world in which we live. And I think you're only going to see as Google searches, which still right now is the principal way that people find out information about you. They want to know about the Underline, they're going to go online, they're going to Google it, they're going to get information. They want to find out what Stripe is doing. Stripe's doing a good job of telling, not just doing, but telling. And then also you can find on their website, you can find on their social media, et cetera. But in time, that's also going to be supplanted by AI searches. And so reputation, more so than ever before, is going to become the determining factor in an organization's ability to succeed and to be sustainable for the long haul. So I think Felipe made a really great observation. And I do think dedicating yourself as an organization, whether you're hosting events to raise money for
Dade Legal Aid,
which we're doing right now. you're having events for any other worthy cause under the sun, it's so fundamental and it's so important. And it's that reputation piece that I think organizations and people oftentimes don't think about. And especially mission-driven organizations, it's just in their blood. They're doing this stuff day in, day out, and they aren't thinking about the degree to which you have to just always bear in mind, you have an opportunity to tell the world who you are, what you're about, do and show. And if it's, you could have quietly written a check, but no, you have an event, you bring different panels here, you invite speakers to talk about what they're doing. That's showing up and giving people an opportunity to really dive into it. And there's a difference between doing and saying. And I think in an ideal world, to power your reputation, you want to do both.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think your comment about reputation is as the most valuable asset that's not on the balance sheet. It does, and it can be gone in a second. It takes us a long time to build it. So good stuff. If anyone else wants to comment, and if people have questions, save them. No, I want to have questions, but we'll save them for the end. So how do we as business leaders, how do we turn words into action? Is there a formula?
Well, I think it's, giving organizations the latitude to do what's necessary. I'll just give an example on the Underline. When we first opened 5 years ago, we kept on getting, the number one question we'd get is, what are you going to do about all the homeless people on the Underline? And we'd always respond, well, anyone can come to the Underline. We're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and there's access for everyone. But we knew this was going to be an ongoing perception problem. So we created a program with the support of Lennar to put formerly homeless people to work. And it's because Lennar really wanted us to partner with Chapman. They just said, could you do something with them? We're interested in seeing that. And so they were our matchmaker. And here we are a year later. We've put 7 people to work. All 7 have secured permanent housing because we're paying a living wage, $21.91 an hour, which I know isn't that big of a deal. But here in Miami-Dade, it is a big deal for a frontline employee to get that. And so they have access to housing now. And it's because Lennar was willing to put that in motion. So not only did they put us together with Chapman Partnership, but they also funded that first year, because anybody who's worked with the homeless population, there are some risks built in. And so we as an organization needed those covered. And so we were really fortunate that a corporate sponsor was able to support us. And we took that leap, and now we're going to grow it next year and in future years. So it'll be a much bigger program with much less support from the private side. So we're just going to end up looking at it as a workforce development program.
I love that. I think that's worthy of brought a tear to my eye, actually. Evan, you look like you were going to say something.
Just the support from the private sector is important, but the force multiplier that is corporate entity doing good work, it takes it to a whole nother level. You can raise $1,000 in $10 increments, or you can go to a Lennar or a Stripe or a big company with resources, and you can multiply the force exponentially. And I think that's great. And I do think organizations, there's so many people who look at corporate America and they're quick to throw stones and point to the things that aren't perfect. But I think organizations that do a good job and they do it at scale, they actually deserve a lot of credit because they bring power that an individual doesn't necessarily have. And I think people shouldn't default to questioning why they're doing it, or are they doing it because they want to appear different than how they are. Just be thankful that now, at this moment, it is something that corporations are willing to invest their resources and time in and maximize it.
Yeah. Is there a concern at all about leaders being too heavy-handed? Like, I want to, what if my employees still want to drink from single-use plastic bottles, even though that makes me cringe? Is that, am I too heavy-handed? Is there a concern there?
Well, what do you do when you catch them? You throw them out the window?
I throw the water out the window and then...
Okay, well, that's a waste
of resources. But I like the idea.
You're just asking my opinion?
Yeah, well, that's the whole point of this. Yeah.
My opinion is you can have whatever views you want, and you can, as a leader in the organization, you can set the tone, but then you also have to respect the fact that not everybody in your organization is going to feel how you do about every issue. And if you're being heavy-handed, then I don't really think, personally, that's your place to do so. And at the end of the day, they can choose where they want to work. And I think organizations that consistently show up in a way where they demonstrate the core values that they have, even if they're not perfectly aligned on every issue with where the employees are, we know that that's the kind of place that people want to work. All these surveys consistently show this rising generation of professionals, it's not salary that's motivating them. It's not the perks. It's not having the beanbag chairs and the foosball table and all of these other things. They want to work for an organization where it's the why of the organization and it's their values. So, yeah, I don't think you should publicly shame your people if they're drinking from plastic bottles. You should educate them, and maybe you should give them metal Stanley cups that they can all drink from.
Done that. Yeah.
So then you're doing the right things.
No, I use that as an example. But I could see sometimes there's not an alignment, but I appreciate your feedback. Now you're just giving me personal advice. Forget them.
Okay.
Felipe, do you want to help us out of this ditch here?
Oh, man.
Anything to add?
On the last point regarding kind of people's vision for why they work for a company, and I think having the concrete understanding of what each company is providing and having a clear service mission, personally, I identify with that. I think it motivates you. There's nothing more rewarding, like I'm sure seeing the Underline come to vision is extremely rewarding, even as a Miami-Dade resident, but also working on that project. And within Stripe, we see that as being kind of the vision that we support. And to give like two quick examples, one is we see, and it goes along with the lines of sustainability, we see our mission as facilitating kind of the operation of small business to large business to solo enterprise. And that's really always been how we grew. And supporting the individual merchant, for example, in a farmer's market, that someone that before was limited to cash, and every time somebody would show up with no cash, that was a sale they lost, right? And it was extremely impactful and limiting to them as to how they operated as a business. But then we also have other examples, like, for example, donor platforms, even for organizations or churches that we support, where we see our vision is we want these organizations to focus on what they are good at, right? And what they actually want their mission to be. Their mission shouldn't be operating a payments platform or operating a process to do that. It's really everything else that they are focusing on. And we want to take that headache away. Of course, we're a business and we have operated a business behind providing that service. But seeing it come to fruition in regards to those small businesses and enterprise really helps the Stripe collective team help motivate ourselves to kind of say, we're adding value to these people's lives, we're adding value to the economy. Every organization, whether public or private, has to pay bills, has to collect money, has to have a way to operate their business. And we see our role in that. I think it's really rewarding, motivating. For example, we have a service called Stripe Capital that we saw a gap in the services between what traditional financing institutions provide to small businesses and their needs, right? And the gap was very evident from where we stood, which was we need a way to offer quick loans to small businesses that they can repay as their business operates. So if you operate a business that only gets paid once a month or once a quarter, it really didn't make sense for you to be paying a loan on a monthly basis and being up to your neck and really be worried about making it surviving the next month. It really made sense. As I get paid, I should be able to pay back the loan, right? And it was a very straightforward balancing act. We found that took off by itself, and the majority of our users of Stripe Capital are small entities, small mom and shops, the plumbing service that just stood up his own company because he went solo and really needed those $10,000, $20,000 to actually build equipment and then repay in a way as he started to gain business. And so this is all to say we see our vision as kind of facilitating the merchant and the economy operation, and with that, hopefully enabling the sustainable growth of all these individuals and companies.
Yeah, I love that. You're kind of like an equalizer for small business. You're eliminating friction for small business. There's so much of it already. So cool, good stuff. So I asked about me being too heavy-handed as a leader, and so I'm gonna ask the flip side: does it have to start at the top? Like, does leadership have to set the tone? Can it be at any level? Felipe, sure, you're on a roll.
No, I hope every organization, when it comes to these topics, is actually doing both, right? I think we all see to our leaders to kind of set the tone and most likely set the vision for where they want to go. But having an organization that allows the growth from a grassroots perspective, I think it makes a huge difference, right? Having a space where you can either present the ideas, and it can be at a company, 10,000, 100,000 people or 10 employees, right? We all know those organizations where there is a space to kind of share the ideas to either improve the business or make things that are kind of sustainable to have an impact. And so I do see that those are the types of organizations that have the brightest future. And sometimes it just takes a while for it to play out in that way. And there's a lot of external factors, but having that growth or that ability to be able to contribute both top down and bottom up is, I think, a huge benefit to those organizations that are open-minded.
Yeah. Patrice, you want to?
Well, I guess I want to ask, how many of you have a culture committee in your firm? Oh, wow.
Peter,
Okay.
of course.
Oh, boy.
6
So kudos to you. Yes, exactly what
What's a
Felipe
culture committee?
Well, so basically it's a committee that can help you address some very difficult issues that you're tackling as an organization. We have found it really helped with just getting the pulse on what the employees are thinking. But also we started flipping the script a little. In the past, we always felt, we had these quarterly retreats. Management had to figure out what the agenda was going to be. We have to drive, exactly what people are going to experience. And then we thought, wait a minute, I'm not sure we're engaging those junior associates in this discussion. And so we flipped it and we said, okay, this quarter, you're going to lead it. You tell us, the whole 4 hours, what does that look like? We gave them a theme. It wasn't like just whatever you want, but we'd give them a theme. So there was that leadership at the top. And I tell you, they did a much better job than we did, engaging the entire organization. I mean, we only have about 35 people. You all have probably much bigger firms. But that culture committee is very valuable. It kind of takes the air out of the room. It helps generate those ideas. And for us, it's really been beneficial to hear from employees. They have a little cover, right? It's not just one person raising their hand saying, maybe we shouldn't have to work every Friday, or, it just gives them overall that cover they're looking for. And I think it's definitely paying off for us.
Wow, I like it. So as a small business owner, I hear the word committee and I instantly am like, oh God, what? More people talking time that they could be, billing clients or doing something. So my initial reaction to that is to get tense about it. But I know that's not the intention.
No,
but I think the key is...
Let's get a committee to discuss this.
Really?
One more meeting.
So you've worked in academia also.
Yeah.
I think fundamental to the success of the committee, presumably, is asking questions, which I think is really the key. So I think a lot of people who lead organizations, yes, maybe if you're the owner, the managing partner, et cetera, you have the prerogative to steer where the organization is going, rather than try to guess about how people feel about the fact that you selected one organization versus another, versus you did this as the volunteer project. You could simply ask. And pausing and asking the question of the team members, you gather so much information. Certainly as I try to mentor some of our younger staff members, what I try to tell them all the time is, if you want to really get better at whatever your service is, whatever your leadership is, don't be the one who talks the most, be the one who asks the most questions and does active listening. So you can find out a lot if you just stop talking and you listen and you ask them, what do you guys think? And then you can process it. And at the end of the day, the leaders can decide they want to go to the right, they want to go to the left, they want to select one, but at least give people the input and or give them the chance to provide the input, which I think is about a very valuable thing. And something else that you said that also sort of in the parlance of the times, it triggered me.
Okay.
I'm just making fun of the term
I'm
trigger warning. I've never liked, as our firm, using the term retreat for when we get together. Because to me, there's power in words. Yeah. If you're in retreat, you're going backwards and you're covering up point. So instead, what we do is we do strategy summits.
I like that.
So,
facing forward, leaning in.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Take it, leave it, but
I like it.
Anyway, just a thought.
Yeah, I like that. It was when I was at Big Law, we would have a partners retreat. And to me, that was just a meeting. A retreat is, I have a drink that has a little umbrella in it. And my feet are in the sand. That's a retreat. But I like your definition better.
Summit.
So, we're living in some strange times, some shifts in the political winds. Are these like this concept of sustainability and social consciousness? Are these still popular? Or are we immune from political shifts? Evan, do you want to try to tackle that?
I don't think we're immune from political shifts because I think politics is filtered into every aspect. And I do think every 4 years, whoever the elected administration is, it's like a weather vane. You could be here and then 180 degrees differently. So I think definitely you run the risk because of politics of especially the issue of sustainability becoming super popular and something that everyone's, waving that flag. And then to the other side, it's, overregulation. You're putting a cap on free markets. So everything can be politicized.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for us, and I'm sure you're all experiencing this, Karen mentioned it, you have to be very agile. And so, sure, there's a new administration, but we as an organization can't change our mission. We're going to continue doing what we do. So I'll give you an example. We had something called the Green Leaders Apprenticeship. It's putting job opportunities and upskill opportunities for people who aren't traditionally going to a four-year college. So here we are facing a new administration that really doesn't like the word green, really doesn't like the word environment. So we just relabeled it into a workforce development program, which it always was a workforce development program. But we really used to emphasize the climate piece. We talk about climate tech. We talk about providing horticulture skills in an environment that is no longer really supporting those kinds of, curriculum development. And so far, we've been doing okay. So we have to be very nimble. We have to understand where the winds are coming from, obviously. Actually, we have a federal grant. We did get a call that said, could you please take out all the words that say underserved? Literally, we had to strip our reports of all those words, and we were willing to do it because that money is still coming in. So as long as you're agile and mission focused, I think you'll survive.
So we're just changing the labels.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. Well, at least your mission hasn't changed, so
right.
That's important. All right. So can anyone share an example of when sustainability gave you an advantage? I know, Felipe, you kind of touched on it with the negotiations.
Sure.
And the farmers market too. Is it?
No, I think the focus on, and it ties into being mission driven and kind of the sustainability aspect of what is a company's mission statement and how far are they focused on doing the work that it takes to actually put that to work. I think the examples that I see out in partners or users that we have all the time really resonates with me, and it really excites me about the opportunities ahead of like things developing. And I know the next session is an AI, but I also think the times changing also give us the benefit of now using technology as an equalizer amongst like across industries. And the small little guy that didn't have the huge department behind it supporting now can actually compete with a medium-sized or larger company. And so I think those types of examples are particularly exciting. We see startups all the time that just flourish where they find the need, where they find a real value that they're providing out there. And the market responds very favorably and gives them a ton of business and gives them their support and investment. And people are cheering for them. And we at Stripe are doing the same because we're seeing their growth in their numbers and in their business. And I think that's particularly rewarding. Organizations like that are really what the sustainable growth of like everybody of the economy, and even looking at it at local Miami economy, seeing a ton of startups now flourishing in Miami is particularly exciting, at least for me personally. Years ago, that was never the case, and I would never have suspected to see a startup come up on Stripe's radar or our fireside chats on Friday where we bring in users. We brought in an amazing user that's their operations is very based out of Miami. They're in Felix, if anybody has heard of them.
Felix,
it's the name of the company. They do, imagine like a Venmo cross-border. And so it's all enabled via WhatsApp. And what it basically gives the opportunity of people that don't have regular banking relationships to send funds to their loved ones back in Central America or South America via a simple WhatsApp. And it's such a kind of basic
such a simple
service. It's very complex on the back end, but it flourished and it grew and it's growing tremendously, and they're doing an amazing job. And these are the types of things that I think being in that mission driven and providing a service that is clearly there, and they're supporting a ton of growth that honestly I wish somebody would step back and say like, okay, how much growth in these third world countries are they supporting via these funds that they're sending abroad, making it cheaper, making it faster, making it easier. And I wish there was a way to tangibilize that into numbers. And everything I see is the impact of the people that get the benefit of that no longer have to go to the more expensive banking institutions or send cash with loved ones that gets lost or gets robbed and things like that. So I think those types of examples are particularly exciting, and we have them out there in our economies. Just sometimes you have to look a little bit more. Cool.
A couple of things, first of all, as I mentioned, we're 10 miles of nature. So we knew that sustainability is the core part of our mission, but we didn't realize to the extent it would benefit us. So we have bioswales throughout the Underline, and bioswales basically take heavy stormwater runoff, they clean the water, and then it returns it to the aquifer before clean, basically. And so it slows it down and it reduces flooding. So I don't know if you all recall, last year we had basically 3 days of rain, almost 24 inches of water within those 72 hours. And our bioswales held up. And that was something, we really didn't know until we tested them. Likewise, we have something called microforests, which are basically these little forests that you put in an urban area that's rapidly growing. We didn't realize we're testing it, right? But now we're seeing research is showing these microforests, so just in 2,000 square feet, are accelerating carbon capture by 5 times the normal amount of a regular forest. Whoa. So we are benefiting. And then, from the corporate side, FPL has been our Green Fleet sponsor for about 2 years now, and so 10 out of 12 of our vehicles are electric. And lo and behold, with this price increase in gas, we have fared very well. We never would have predicted it. It's mission aligned. We thought, isn't this great? But now we're experiencing some of the additional benefits of investing in sustainable solutions.
Wow, I love that. I just want to express my admiration for what these guys are doing because they're putting their money where their mouth is. All I did was name my company after a tree, and that was it.
It's catchy.
It is, and I love banyan trees, so you'll remember that.
So I love banyan trees too. And by the way, just a quick diversion. Just to show that in today's world, you could take anything and make something very different out of it is I was giving a talk last week and someone among the students asked me about the origin of the name. And I just said, I like the banyan tree. I thought it was a great metaphor for effective communication, all these parts. And our tagline was rooted in strategy, and banyan trees have these great roots. And I saw one of the people looking at his phone. He didn't get your briefing about how rude it is. So he was on his phone, and I'm looking out, and I'm seeing him on his phone. And then I get up, and I see him go and talk to his professor, and he's pointing at the thing. And then he actually had a hostile question that came to me a couple minutes later. He said, I noticed you gave this explanation for why you named your company after a banyan tree, but did you know that according to Gemini, banyan trees are traditionally used in India to hang people? How do you feel about that? So you just never know.
So you're changing the name to... That's remarkable. Speaking of which, does anyone has a hostile question for the No, honestly, if I did say save the questions, but if anyone has a question, I do want audience participation. George, can we get a microphone out there, or I could keep going?
Patrice, this is really a kudos and then a fairly selfish question after. I've been writing the Metro Rail for a number of years now, so I've been able to see firsthand the changes in the Underline. It's been very remarkable. So I didn't realize it was your organization, to be frank, and it's beautifully done. I still see the development. This partly selfish question is: have you heard about any expansions to the rail on the south side?
Rail or to the trail?
Or both.
Okay, so rail, as you know, south side, they have a great BRT service that now goes from Dadeland South all the way down to Homestead.
Right, but the actual train.
Oh, I know. So, I know. It's hard. They're not going any further south. I mean, that bus, they put tons of money and they were able to build it much faster. I see the roll of the eyes. I do encourage you to try it because once you're on it, I'm hearing everybody's loving it. So, because they do have signal preemption, so it almost operates like a train.
Okay, fair enough. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you, George. All right. Oh, I got another one. Go ahead, Melanie.
Patrice, you've spoken a lot about the Underline. I'm curious because I know that the project is currently from, I think, Brickell Station to Dadeland South.
Right.
But what about from Palmetto to Government Center that typically passes through more underserved communities?
That's so interesting you mentioned that. Yeah, I live north. Believe me, I every day dream of it because biking from my house to the Underline is not fun. I'll just give you the short story. Our board really wants us to finish those 10 miles first to have that proof of concept. But we are helping other organizations that really want to realize something similar. The right-of-way is much different going north. So that's why, no one's pursuing it because there's buildings below the Miami Metro Rail versus in the south. I don't know why. They never built under it. So you had this area for a trail. So we are helping like the Ludlam Trail, the Commodore Trail, the Rickenbacker Trail. There's something called the Miami Loop in the city to try to help them, give them tools. It took us 2 years to get approval for a green crosswalk. So we're hoping, hey, now that we have it, everybody else can do it without fighting with the county. So we're hoping we can expedite the delivery of a full network across the county.
You made a strategic mistake, though. You called it a green crosswalk. If it was just a crosswalk.
Oh my gosh, you're right. We'll strike that from the report. Yeah, it's just the crosswalk.
So I'm going to go back to the topic of this idea of sustainability and social consciousness is, how do we know if an organization's doing it for the right reasons? Or does it matter, I suppose?
Who cares?
Yeah.
They're doing good work. Who cares? If the net result is they're doing good work, who are we to look at them and question their motivations? People often leap to positions about people who are accused of bad things. I see this in my line of work all the time. Someone gets sued, they read the complaint, they presume that the person must be guilty of something. And look, here it is. There's a court document, these allegations, even when the government entities sometimes target individuals. There's an assumption. People draw conclusions very, very quickly. And in my view, it doesn't matter. Like it's wasted energy. Talking about energy, see how I did that? Tied that in.
Nice.
But why bother questioning whether they're doing it? If you want to have a Twitter spat X argument with someone, go for it if that's how you want to spend your time. But be happy about the fact that they're doing good work.
Yeah, I agree. Patrice.
Yeah, and I think, we never question somebody's motivations. When they come to the Underline, we're not saying, well, why do you want to volunteer with us? Why do you want to help kids learn how to ride a bike? We're thrilled you want to help us. So if you're doing it for the right reasons, wrong reasons, I don't know, but I also don't care. And I think, honestly, if you're faking it until you make it, you might learn a few things along the way. So you may think, oh, this is a bunch of, hogwash. I'm not really bought into it. But honestly, doing something day after day is going to change behavior. So we're thrilled to be your partner, and really we're not worried about if you're trying to greenwash your reputation, fine with us.
Yeah. You mentioned when we were talking about, we share that
sure.
story.
So I just said, as a kid, I grew up in Toledo, Ohio. I don't know if anybody
Toledo, Ohio? Come on,
right.
I knew we had Toledo, Ohio.
Yes. Okay, yeah.
Let's go.
Well, you might remember, the mafia at one time was relatively big in Toledo, Ohio. So my mother had a steakhouse she loved to go to, and we found out it was mafia run. So we asked our FBI friends, hey, should we stop eating there? And they said, no, why? That's a legitimate form of revenue. Maybe they'll learn to just stick with the restaurant rather. Granted, they were probably laundering the money, but we got to keep on eating there. So I love that answer.
Yeah, more pizza. Was there somebody else? Yeah, I thought I saw a hand. Yeah.
Hello. I very much enjoy the Underline also. I live very close to it. So thank you for that development. So sustainability, what is the sustainability, the maintenance for it? How is that projected into perpetuity for the maintenance of the Underline?
Oh, bless you. I wish there were a bunch of elected officials here that, so are you mostly Miamians? I think, yeah. So this is not a community that loves to pay for services. It's not a community that definitely likes to pay for operations and maintenance. I mean, you're looking at, why can't we expand the transit? It's because I think half of that money went to maintenance and operations, and now the state legislature is reversing that. So you can't even pay for operations and maintenance with. Well, yeah, and the CITT is trying to...
What's that?
That's the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust. They're the people who watch that half penny that is going toward transit. But my point is, this is a community that doesn't like taxes and definitely doesn't like government funds to go toward anything related to operations and maintenance. So that's why, as a public-private partnership, we are challenged every day to try to diversify our funding sources. So right now, we're at about 30% government, 30% county funds. We are being told that in the next 2 years, we're going to have almost zero county funds. So that's why we're doing things like naming rights. Ken Griffin, for instance, was one of our first donors who is the trail sponsor. We have a Brazilian financial company that is our bike share sponsor. Also, they're sponsoring something called the Rock Ridge Plaza. We have Chewy sponsored our dog park. So we have had to get very innovative, but long term, it's going to have to be basically a funding lasagna. A little bit of private funds, a little bit of in-park revenue. We do charge people if you're going to film something in the Underline, if you're going to sell food and beverage in the Underline. So collectively, we hope to get to that. It's about $10 million a year to maintain the Underline once we're built out the full 10 miles.
Maybe you should paint stripes in the crosswalks, and Felipe can go back and they'll call
Oh, yes, let's talk.
Understripe.
Lots of stripe.
The understripe crossing.
See, look at this. Ideas are happening.
This is what we're talking about.
It's going to cost you a lot showing up today.
Understripe.
All right, so our next panel, shifting gears a little, our next panel is on technology. So how do we balance this use of technology from the desire to be a little less digitally connected, more physically connected? Anyone?
Yeah. I'll take this one first. It further builds on kind of the examples that I shared before about companies that are looking to kind of solve friction problems and helping people get back to basics. I don't know about you guys, but lately I've seen more and more news that are focused around kind of getting people back to the human interaction and how there is this benefit. Of course, we're seeing a ton of like the cost side of not only like my kids, for example, growing up in the AI area, that I use it all day work. My son has seen me use it next to me sitting in a laptop. He's probably scratching his head as to what exactly is going on. But there's a lot of unknowns, but there are positive benefits. And I feel very adamant about the fact that enabling these types of technologies also give us time back. And in any way that we can give either time back for people to have that in-face interaction and help build relationships in person, that will hopefully be beneficial, but also helping businesses, again, refocus on the things that they want to do and leverage their operations even more. We see it within Stripe. Our leaders have been very adamant about the vision for the company being not, let's do headcount reduction as a result of improvement or enhancements via AI, but let's look at it as how do we 10x everybody across the company with these AI tools? And where there's opportunity for growth, you're pretty much doing a good investment. If anybody additional headcount you hire is going to be a 10x employee in the future, right? It's simple, straightforward math. Now, of course, that's assuming there's a very excess demand for your product or your service. And we're very lucky to be in that situation right now. But I do think the concept of trying to get technology back into our hands and people leveraging it across to also equalize it makes it so much better. I think people that had lack of access to either large networks or people that weren't in the right schools or such, that now a lot of these tools are actually putting the power right back in their hands. And what that looks like as for the growth and development of like the individuals, I think that gives us a ton more opportunities, which is kind of what we all have always been asking for. And so I see the benefit of it and of course conscious of the risk, but I do think there's a ton of good things hopefully coming our way.
So in a sense, you're saying use more advanced technology to use less technology.
Totally.
Yeah, to free up. Yeah, okay.
Totally.
I hear you. And you're seeing that like, for example, with doctors, that now they don't have to spend the time, taking notes. Their notes are automatically transcribed so they can spend more time with the patient. I don't know if they're doing that, but Patrice, anything to add to this?
Definitely optimize the technology where you can. We're using it to map all of our assets along those 10 miles, which, you wouldn't believe how many lights we have, garbage cans, all that stuff. So it's fabulous. But I do have to say there are so many people coming to the Underline to escape technology. Even though we have free Wi-Fi along all 10 miles, they're going there to make connections. About 2/3 of all of our visitors are saying they meet new people. So we have dating groups that come out and run with other people. We have something called Walking with a Purpose, and this woman just started this group so other people could talk to each other. We have veterans who come out and walk on the Underline. And then we have something really recently called Moms Making Moves. And so these are moms of first-time moms of newborns. And they are saying this is so healthy for them because sitting at home, feeling very isolated, this is not going to help you. This actually isolates you further. And I'm on a national board, and the damage this is doing to the next generation, even you as employers should be very worried about. The attention spans are shrinking. Even the shape of your iris is changing. Things are really happening because of too much time on your phone. So what's good is there is a real pushback. Yes, optimize technology all you can with work. But, once you're out of that, try to make connections with real people. Try to observe real things happening wherever it is on the Underline, any place.
I agree with everything they said completely. And I also think that there's a shift that's going to happen in the marketplace. And I think leaders are going to start looking for people who have a different skill set than what we've relied on in the past. And so I could tell you right now, the things that I used to hire for, even just a couple of years ago, I wanted technical expertise in being able to do the job. Now, what I want people with high EQ. I want good communicators. I want people who can communicate to our clients the value of what we're providing. And so I think that there's a whole generation that lacks a lot of those skills. And young employees, you're telling me you think you know what the customer or the client is thinking. Like, have you called them? And they look at you like, oh my God, like on the phone? But I think we're going to see a sort of shift back to where I think employers are going to need younger people who have some of those soft skills. So that you heard it here first. That's my prediction.
I like it. Wow. I was going to ask for final thoughts, but I'm going to take that one in. Any audience questions? Nobody else that rides the Underline wants to know about the stop that they go to, or no? Go ahead.
What's the board Patrice is on? I'm curious to have young children.
Oh, it's called Unite for Safe Social Media. Yeah, check it out. Lots of tips for parents.
Nice. We learned a lot. And also, I think everyone saw that the Underline, Patrice had some slides rolling, so hopefully you got a chance to see that. But we have a question here. Thanks, Tanisha.
So today we've touched on many different themes, including how to frame something. So we were talking about, instead of calling it a business retreat, we call it a summit. And Patrice talked about the grants where she redacted, where the organization redacted certain words from the report to get to the end goal. And from that, I guess I had a question about relating to sustainability. Is there something lost in relation to sustainability when we choose to reframe the words? So for instance, when we were talking about the report, when we take away words like diversity, equity, and inclusion, or an acknowledgement that this grant is for an underserved community, when we redact reports like that to justify getting the grant, which is a good goal to achieve, is there something lost in terms of sustainability when redacting words like that takes away an acknowledgement that it is serving a group suffering from racial disparities or an underserved community? When you're thinking about future generations and not being able to acknowledge this grant was for this community, is there something lost in terms of sustainability?
Yeah, it's absolutely a great question. And I do think you're right, because by not talking about it, yes, am I getting today's outcome? So to my original point, so thinking beyond today, thinking beyond yourself. So are you getting today's outcome? It's great. But for that next generation coming in, if they don't know we were targeting, and we still are targeting underserved populations, will they continue to do that? We have had to revamp everything because of the fear of losing funding. And you're right, even though internally we all agree, hey, our mission's still the same. We are still, all ships rise with the tide. We're still dedicated to helping small businesses of color. But by not talking about it, to Evan's point, are we, I think we're diluting the overall impact. Yeah. I think it's a really good point.
Yeah, I realize it's I'm not trying to do a hostile question. It was just a genuine thought that arose from that conversation of, is the end justifying the means? And if the answer is yes, then that is completely fine, of course.
For today, yes, but I think long-term, you're right, there's going to be an erosion, because if nobody's talking about it, at some point, do we stop doing it?
Right.
Yeah. I think it was actually a very great question. It was really thoughtful. And I think truth and fact have never been called into question as they have in recent years in this country. And fundamentally, there will be a reckoning at some point where we as a nation have to get back to having a set of things. They either are real or they're not. It's not about the framing. It's not about the word choices. And the longer that we spend in this weird place where we are in the country right now, where people on one side of the aisle can't even agree on basic facts of reality with people on the other side of the aisle, it's a very difficult and dystopian place to be. So certainly I hope that at some point we will all regain our collective sanity and start to find things that we can disagree about the right way forward, but we've got to eventually get back to where we can agree what the facts of the matter are.
Yeah, agreed. And I think you said it earlier that some of it is we just changed the label. Mm-hmm. And so whoever is driving these changes is out to pick off certain words, and they're focused on the word and you're focused on the substance. And so to me, you're, yes, you're muting the conversation a little bit, but you're still achieving the same goal. And eventually you'll find a different word, and your mission hasn't changed.
I hope so. But you're at a broader level, though. It's a really good question, like affirmative action at colleges, and it's a really good question.
Yeah, we got a hand back there. Let's get it to her. Get her the mic. Yeah.
Swings, that's a bit reactionary, but at the end of the day, the human touch and the outreach. And so the organization, whether it's a nonprofit or whether it's a for-profit, or government, the outreach and the human touch is still important. So the audiences have many ways to be touched. So it could be through social media, but what about if it's schools? You can go to the principals, you can go to other organizations and boys club, girls club, etc., and do the outreach. And I'm not limiting my comment to child organizations or juvenile, but even adult populations as well. So labels are going to be constantly changed. It's happened throughout history. But at the end of the day, regardless of the label, the human outreach.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's about, the purpose, the intention. Ultimately, the mission hasn't changed. All right. And by the way, I should have mentioned this before. I mentioned the podcast earlier. We always record these sessions and then we release the sessions on the podcast. So if you want to hear, first of all, if you want to hear your wonderful questions spoken on the microphone, you want to hear yourself, you get to hear yourself now. But if you want to hear this again, now the hands are starting to go up. Last question, Hakeem, bring us home.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the panel and I really enjoyed some keywords like culture and trust and core values and things like that. I'm curious from maybe a slightly personal leadership lens, how on the day-to-day when you're navigating all the complexities and challenges of your roles, of your organizations, of the missions, how are you embodying that? How are you maintaining that consistency, that practice, so that you can model that for the people that you lead and the people in your organization and the communities that you serve?
Go. Let's make this the final question. I like it.
Okay. Great question. For my organization, SEECR, SICAR, our core values: strategy, integrity, commitment, can-do, accountability, and results. We have those core values in every job description that we post. We hire based on those. We evaluate based on those. We have a daily huddle every day that's 10 minutes, the whole team on Zoom. Shout outs have to be pegged to a core value. So I can't just say, if Patrice were my colleague, hey, Patrice did a really great job for that client. I'd have to say, Patrice did a great job really demonstrating results, and she brought a commitment, can do. So to me, core values are not something that you write on a poster and stick on the wall. They're fundamental to the DNA of an organization. And so that's how we do it at my company at Red Banyan.
And by the way, we have ours on the wall, so it's not a poster. Go. Yeah, of course, exactly.
Yeah. Similar, we evaluate based on them. I think, as a leader, you just need to be transparent and you need to communicate. Somebody was talking about earlier the why, you're doing something. Explain to people why you're making a decision, because a lot of times, you get frustrated, right? You're in a hurry. We always joke we're building the plane, we're flying it while we're building it because we're moving so fast at the Underline. But take the time to explain to your employees why you're doing this, the connection to that value. Because a lot of times they don't see that connection. To you, it is so obvious, but explaining it is really key.
Yeah, top of mind, we have operating principles as well. And I think within my immediate team and being within the legal industry, I think my biggest challenging, my team is spread across the US. And it's very difficult to do that remotely. And that is a difficulty that we have. And our job in and of itself, even though we're negotiating for deals, is hostile many times. And so I truly try to do a really good job in hiring candidates, looking for those principles across the interview process. And then once they're there, I do think leading by example in a way, showing them fundamentally, when we are dealing with the user, we're not dealing with them for that immediate benefit of them getting to sign the deal or close that. We're looking at them to enable kind of the long-term vision. And if future Felipe were to look back on what you did 2 years from ago on that one deal, would you be proud of that, or would you be kind of trying to avoid responsibility for that? And I do think there's no fairness in trying to cut corners in negotiations or in legal practice overall. And so I try to share that insight with my immediate team and just saying you're negotiating deals, you're the face of not only of the company, but you're also the face of you as a professional out there. And in this market, you should be very proud of that. And every interaction you have, you should be proud of then walking away and saying, I did the best job that I could in the right way.
I like all those answers. I agree with everything. I mean, ours are on the wall: commitment, communication, collaboration, creativity, and caring. And I love the idea of when you're giving someone a shout out, tying it to one of those. So everyone hear that for the huddle, our weekly huddle. But I also think it's if you want people to act a certain way, then you better act that way. And so lead by example. Great stuff. Amazing panel. How about a round of applause for the panel?
For more information on this show and other resources, Visit bastamron.com and connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at Bast Amron.